Thanks, Jim, and hello, everyone. I'm delighted to be here on behalf of our 3.2 million members at the National Education Association. And first, I'd like to say thank you to CED for having this report. I think that talking about compensation in these economic times is a beautiful thing, and I am happy for the conversation around here. I also think one of the things that struck me about this report is it was very respectful of the teaching profession. And sometimes we get reports that aren't that respectful. So I love the part that you cannot have success without teachers. Doing things to teachers do not work. They may work short term, they will not be long term. And we've seen that over and over again with kinds of reform efforts. So having teachers at the table actively involved in making decisions around these issues is absolutely critical. And when I say teachers, I'm also saying the collective voice of teacher unions. And I think that, as you pointed out, Jim, about the challenge of educating all the children is very pressing upon the union also, because we know we have different stakes that are before us, and so we want to do a good job around that. I taught school for 20-some years in Raleigh, North Carolina. I have been through a merit pay system designed by Vanderbilt University and based on observations, very expensive in the administration of it. My system didn't listen to Vanderbilt when they decided what the reward would be, so they lessened it to about 40% of what Vanderbilt recommended. And what happened is that the teachers exceeded all expectations and broke the bank, and they stopped doing it. Then I went through a career ladder program. We did a pilot career ladder program in North Carolina. Very well designed, very much a part, had the involvement of the Teachers Association in North Carolina. And people liked it. But it was in a pilot program, got too expensive, never went statewide. When bad times came, all of a sudden, all the promises were unfulfilled. Then I went through a program paying based on school-wide test scores. So if the school, and it was on a growth model, if the school made exceeding improvement, they got one set of pay. If they just met the standard, they got another set of pay. Lasted quite a while. Past year, suspended, didn't happen. So when these things happen, you can understand why teachers might think, okay, is this for real? Are you going to invest the money in this? The success of the Denver program is the fact that the community put up $25 million to do that program. So without the funding sustainability, sometimes teachers believe it's another bait and switch on them. And I think we've got to be very careful of the programs that we do, that we are committed to seeing them through, and that we fulfill the promises that are important. As I read the report, there were many things that I agreed with, some that I didn't. One of the things that I do agree with is the pay for teachers who are in hard-to-staff schools. Teachers know if you work in a high-poverty, low-performing school, you're going to work harder and you're going to work longer if you're doing a good job for those students. And our surveys of our members, teachers have no objection to paying additional pay for those. We did a study of about 2,000 nationally board certified teachers, and we asked them what would it take to recruit you into teaching and what would it take to keep you there. Now, what they told us was number one was leadership. Give me a good principal, I'll go to that school. And number two was empowerment. I'm a good teacher. I'm not going to the school to do robotic teaching. Give me the power to teach in my own creative way. Number three was collaboration. I want to work with other teachers. I don't want to be isolated. 4, safety, 5, working conditions, 6, salary. And we actually released a report just recently, and our president was testifying before Congress yesterday on this report, that children of poverty deserve great teachers. That's the paradigm shift that we have to have happen. That's really the shame of what we're doing in America's public schools, is that we do not give poor children the best teachers. And I think that we have to create the system that creates the supply for having quality teachers available for every classroom. And I do think it has to be a systemic approach to do that. I also, as I mentioned, like the fact that of the partnership. Quite frankly, my union is willing to step up to be a partner. We just recently testified before Congress and said what we'd like to do is basically create a memorandum of understanding for every struggling school that's identified in the new school improvement grant legislation, so that we sit down with the administration and decide what are the uniquenesses that this school needs to make sure that the children in those schools have the best education. Are there contract barriers that need to be removed? Are there new additions that need to happen for these students? And that we do it together, and that we do it in a collaborative way. I'm a firm believer that if the union and government and administration work together, there is nothing we can't do. And we need to move a lot faster in creating those kinds of collaboration. So I was glad to see that kind of collaboration. Obviously, how you use test scores is very problematic for us because we fear that test scores aren't always reflective of the teacher performance. That we all know as teachers, when we pass out a test, the first thing kids say to us, does it count? And there's a different result when it counts and it doesn't count. And student effort is very key in testing. You know, these tests are for students to learn their performance. So whether or not test scores should be used for evaluation purposes or for compensation purposes is very problematic for us. And without research, it would be very hard for us to move on that, but I would say we would welcome the experimentation. I like the fact that Gates is going to spend multi-millions of dollars on research around teacher effectiveness. I think that would be very informative, and look forward to those results. But I believe that teachers are responsible for their practice. You own your practice as a teacher, and you should be held accountable for that. If you are a good practitioner, I believe you will drive student achievement. And I think that creating performance pay plans that are tied to practice, as was what I read in the report about looking at professional development kinds of issues and things that drive quality within a performance pay, I think we could certainly have a good conversation and come to, I think, designing a program that would be around that. You know, I just came back from Finland, and it just strikes me that we try to create the quality on the back end. We're not, I totally agree with recruiting from the top third. And I think that's what Finland does. They had 6,000 applicants for their Institute of Education, 800 people were accepted. They were paid for the preparation, during the preparation time, they were paid a salary. And when they come out and get a job in the Finland schools, they have the trust, the value, and the respect. They don't do standardized testing in Finland. They do a lot of teacher testing. Teachers have responsibility for standards. Very similar model in Singapore. They're the ones that are number one in the student achievement on these PISA exams. You know, I wonder why we don't make the commitments and the investments into teacher quality. So those are my initial thoughts. I'll have some others as questions, and I'll stop there.